Welcome, everyone, to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, our live post-game edition. Browns losing to the 49ers 26-8. Dan Lobby here, and I am bringing on, as we speak, Ashley Bastock and Mary Kay Cabot. We are, of course, still at Huntington Bank Field. Lance Riesland is going to join us in a little bit as well once Mary Kay and Ashley jump off to bring us home here on the podcast. Because Mary Kay and Ashley still have a lot of writing left to do. So we'll let them go do that. So 26-8, the final. And of course, we'll start with, let's just start with Shedeur Sanders, of course, because that's always going to be the topic for as long as he is the starter. And Mary Kay, he will be the starter for at least another week when the Browns play the Titans next week, which is another prime opportunity. This is a real chance for this football team to win a game, whatever it means now at this point with 9 losses. It is still an opportunity for them to win a game. I know Kevin wouldn't go as far as to look beyond next week. He's taking it week by week with these guys, but right now, I guess that's sort of what this is all about, right? Like for Shedeur, just play well enough each week to earn that next start and just see how long you can string this out and see if you can start to make that case to maybe be the guy, or at least be in the mix to be the guy moving forward after this season.
That's right. And I think now the charge is for the Browns to try and figure out, do they have to draft a quarterback with one of their 2 first-round picks? Or do they not? Can Shedeur Sanders do enough to show them that he can be the guy? I think that's what this is all about. And I do think he probably will start the rest of the season unless he gets injured. I think they believe that between these 2 guys, Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, that I think they believe that perhaps Shedeur now is the one who has the better chance of possibly being their quarterback of the future. Now, I suppose there is a world in which they might decide to see some more of Dylan Gabriel one way or the other. Who knows? You get to that final game and you really don't know what the philosophy or the thinking is going to be at that point. But for right now, it's really all about trying to figure out, can Shedeur be the guy? And I think he showed some things in this game that told me that he's making progress. I think that touchdown pass to Harold Fannin was a really, really nice touchdown pass. Once again, he was under duress and he got the ball off. He got hit as he was throwing the ball, but he made a really nice pass. He was accurate on that. The other thing that I like that he does is he evades the rush very well. He senses where it's coming from. He's got a good sixth sense that way for the most part. And he gets that ball off. He's not afraid of getting drilled. He's not afraid of getting hit. And he did that again today. So I thought that was good. And he did not throw an interception today. So these are some positive signs. And I think he's probably going to look pretty good against the Titans. Once again, that's a horrible football team. So you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt. But I thought he built today on some of the things that he did last week against the Raiders.
Yeah, and I think, look, there were mistakes, and I always like to go back and, it's a great chance to rewatch these games and sort of see, was there something good I missed? Was there something bad I missed? And there were a couple times where he did take, he took a sack on 3rd and 15 at the 36 that maybe took them out of field goal range, but I don't know if they would have kicked in these conditions anyway. But to your point, Mary Kay, he didn't make the big mistake for the second week in a row. We really didn't see the big, costly mistake. Even the throw to Fannin, I don't know if this means anything long-term. I don't know if it means like, okay, Shedeur's the guy, but the bottom line is we weren't seeing that stuff, Ashley. Like we weren't seeing even plays like that where a guy like Harold Fannin could sit down in an open spot at wherever he was near the goal line, and the ball gets to him and it's a touchdown. So even just being able to do those basic football functions, like Shedeur Sanders has opened up those parts of the offense, and there's certainly still a work in progress. I don't know if we're going to get a firm answer on Shedeur one way or another. I had some dark thoughts enter my mind today when I saw Mac Jones run onto the field to mop this game up, but he at least can continue to put himself in the discussion moving forward.
He can. I mean, I think really with this team right now, the 2 most important things are what we just talked about, right? It's avoiding the big mistake. and it is looking downfield. And I think on those throws, like the one he made to Harold Fannin, like you see Shador Sanders is a young quarterback who trusts his accuracy. And that's important. Like you can't be afraid to look downfield. And look, when Dylan Gabriel was starting, it felt like at times maybe that he was hesitant. And like you can't hesitate against NFL defenses to throw the football. So yeah, once again I feel how I felt last week. Like he's earned the chance to keep starting for sure and warrant a longer look. There was not by any means a perfect game today for this offense or for him, but I do think there was, multiple things that went wrong that weren't his fault. Of course, I'm sure we're going to talk about this. He had no help from his special teams, right? And some of the short field situations the Browns found themselves in didn't make life easy on the defense either. But I think overall, he shows enough with that arm of his to obviously remain intriguing. And that's why I think so many people found him intriguing at Colorado and then throughout the draft process.
Yeah, and Mary Kate, I mentioned it sort of as a joke, but I think this is something we're going to talk a lot about, obviously, over the next few months. What this team's going to do at quarterback, and I think depending on where they end up in the draft order, and next week's game is very interesting as far as that's concerned. Now, I don't think Tennessee's going to take a quarterback, but we'll see. The Browns still should win that game next week. We walked out of the locker room today and there were a couple fans chanting at Andrew Berry, draft Mendoza. Speaking of Fernando Mendoza, who's going to play against Ohio State on Saturday night in the Big Ten championship game. We're going to learn a lot about him in that game. I don't know how many quarterbacks there are going to be in the first round of this draft. I don't know how many franchise guys there's going to be. We need to let that play out. So then you do start to talk about, let's say it is two sure things in this draft. And maybe the Browns can't get a chance at one of those guys. And so maybe they have to take somebody, again, maybe take another third rounder or take another day 3 guy, whatever it ends up being, however it shakes out. Then you bring in a veteran. If Shador Sanders plays well or plays well enough over these last 5 games, at the very worst, he puts himself in a position where it's like, hey, you're going to be able to compete with whoever's in that room. So if it's, and again, I mostly say this name as a joke, but it's a good name to just keep in mind. If it's Mac Jones and a draft pick and Shador Sanders, he gets a chance to kind of make his case right now for why he deserves a longer look and why maybe he should at least be, whether he's the franchise guy week 1 next year, why he should at least get a chance to be the starter early next year.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely the name of the game and what this is all about. And it's so early on in the process that, as you mentioned, we do not know what the quarterback class is going to look like until everyone comes out and declares and we know what they have. And until we start going to things like the Senior Bowl coming up in at the end of January, early February, then you really start to get a sense of what the teams feel about these quarterbacks and who the top 3 are and where these guys are probably going to go. Although there still will be a lot of subterfuge because remember, at that time last year, everyone still really thought that Shador Sanders was in play at number 2 overall for the Cleveland Browns. Of course, he tumbled all the way to the 5th round. So there still will be a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of people playing it very, very close to the vest. But it seems to me like when all is said and done, I could still see there being 4 quarterbacks going in the first round of this draft. And depending on how things shake out for the Browns over these next 5 games, they will probably have a shot at one of those guys. And then they have to decide, is one of those guys better than what we've seen in Shador Sanders? So I do think that even though Kevin Stefanski's taking it week by week, I think he's going to have to give him a chance to play out the string and see what he can do as long as he can stay healthy for the rest of the season. They need to know if he can possibly be the guy, or as you mentioned, Dan, if he can come in and compete with a first round pick, or if they can maybe use a first round pick on a offensive tackle or a wide receiver or an edge rusher or something like that. So it's a lot of information that they have to gather, a lot of due diligence that they have to do over these next 5 weeks on these quarterbacks. But so far, I still think that Shador hasn't taken himself out of that mix as their potential quarterback of the future.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of keep coming back to, and I don't think this surprises any of us on this podcast, despite what people might say on Twitter or in the YouTube comments or whatever. I don't think it surprises any of us. Sure seems like there's something there with Shador Sanders. I don't know if it's franchise quarterback. I think there's still a ways to go before we can say that. I think there's still some flaws in his game. Can he sit in the pocket and pick apart a defense? Can he handle when he faces a great rushing team? And I don't know when that's going to be, honestly, the rest of this season. Is he going to be able to handle some of that pressure and all of that stuff? Will he fall into some bad habits that we saw that we knew he had in Colorado? Or have the Browns sort of coached a lot of that stuff out of him? And then, Ashley, the other part of this is how much more each and every week are the Browns going to trust him? Because that Harold fan in play, for as great as it was, it came on a drive when the Browns ran 9 straight times to start that drive. So I'm not going to say that they weren't trusting Shador Sanders. They were running the ball really effectively, but they were certainly working a game plan that to some extent minimized how often Shador Sanders had to have the ball in his hands and make a play.
Yeah, I mean, again, I am curious, like, as his workload and what they need him to do continues to expand, like what this is all going to look like. But I mean, I do think the things we see with Shador Sanders, like, to me, and we've had this discussion before, but that ability to kind of make the big play, the natural sort of feel he has for certain things, like working against the pressure, like we saw last week. Like, those things to me, I think, are going to keep him alluring to NFL fans for like a very long time, regardless of how his career ends up panning out. Like, I just think those sort of intangible things and his accuracy and his willingness to look downfield and his lack of turnovers, if that continues to hold, if he is a quarterback who does not throw many interceptions, like, those things are going to keep him in the consciousness, I guess, of fans. And like, I could see him being one of those guys that fans always wonder about for their team, even if he is not like ultimately a franchise quarterback. I think I could see him going that route because there are some good things here. The question is now, can he do enough outside of those sort of intangible things to like become that franchise guy to win the job here? That would be the first step to doing that. But those positive things we saw too, like, people have to remember this Browns offense was so bad. We just weren't seeing them go downfield at all. So when Shador Sanders comes out in his first week and suddenly has the 3 longest offensive plays of the 2025 season, it quite literally looks how the offense has not looked so far yet this year.
Okay, I'm gonna try something here. I'm gonna try a little tech move here and see if I can pull this off. I want to see if I can put this up on the screen. So let's see here. So I just minimized us, and now I'm going to try and share something to the screen. This is me trying live production without actually testing things. So let's see if I can figure this out, because I want to talk a little bit about the Browns special teams. So let's see if I made that work or not. I think I did. So anyway, that's the possession chart right there from this football game. We've had a few people in the YouTube comments already mention the special teams. And Ashley, I know you were writing about short fields or you're going to write about some of the short fields that the 49ers had. But when you look at a couple things in particular here, so you have the punt return, right, to the Browns 16-yard line. You've got a muffed punt where the 49ers take over at the Browns 18-yard line. Something that's not on this San Francisco side, but it's over here on the Browns side, is when they started a possession at their own, let's see if I can find it here, at their own 5-yard line, because Malachi Corley fielded a punt on the sideline that there's 2 good things you could do on that play. One, you just let the ball go out of bounds, or 2, you put a foot out of bounds before you catch it, and it comes out to the 40-yard line if you catch the football. He didn't do either of those things. He fielded the ball and fell out of bounds, and the Browns started at the 5-yard line, and they ended up having to punt. Mary Kay, this has been an ongoing trend with this football team, is their special team struggles. And look, the Steelers lost today. Okay. The Bengals beat the Ravens on Thanksgiving. I know that it has been bad for this football team, and they're 3-9. But I know this is something you talked about on our video. When you think about the games this team has lost because of special teams, and there's more to this game than just the special teams, but it was a big part of it on a bad weather day. If you think about where this team could be with like turn two of those losses into wins, just two of them. So then you're sitting at what, 5-7 in a division where the leader is 6-6? Like that changes a lot of what we're talking about here on this post game podcast. And that's frustrating that there have been so many games where the special teams has just let this team down over and over again.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this is the third game that I can think of where you can almost say that special teams did them in. Now, there were other things in this game, including the fan in fumble that led to a touchdown. But certainly two special teams gaffes led to 14 points, and that didn't help matters at all. But I'm not going to put this one in the exact same category as the other two because there are two losses on this slate that I can directly attribute to special teams. That's the first game against the Cincinnati Bengals because of the two missed kicks, and then the two returns for touchdowns against the Jets. If not for those two special teams losses, the Browns would be right in the hunt and right in the thick of it right now, despite everything that has gone on the offense this year. And that's because of how good their defense is. And it's really unfortunate that the special teams has cost them. And I really have to wonder. I mean, I really think the world of Bubba Ventrone. I think he's a very, very good special teams coach. He came here very accomplished with a wonderful track record. But you really have to wonder if they are going to move forward with him based on all of the special teams mistakes and issues that we've seen this year, including 7 long returns, 3 for touchdowns. And it's just been a very, very challenging year that way. And, I just don't know what they're going to do about that unless they attribute it to the fact that they lost their returner at the beginning of the year in DeAndre Carter, and they've had to really pivot and try to figure things out. And, they've got young guys handling the chore now, right? I mean, you've got Gage Larvidan, an undrafted rookie who really technically wasn't even originally going to make this football team. He was not going to be on this team. And now he's out there fielding punts in very, very trying situations. And, it's tough and you've got to be able to get the job done. And last week he had the long return that helped them win the game. But he's not there yet from a consistency standpoint. And yeah, Malachi Corley, another young guy making a mistake there on a kickoff return. That certainly didn't help matters because they were so backed up and they went 3 and out after that. So yeah, special teams has been a problem, and I don't know where this whole thing is going to go.
Yeah, and it's even like, I mean, I'm thinking back to what game was it, Ashley, where they had the running into the kicker? The
Pittsburgh.
The Pittsburgh.
Hunter,
I always get that one confused
Pittsburgh.
with Baltimore. Yeah, so they had that one. They had the blocked punt against Baltimore. That's what I'm thinking of there. And I think it's a mix of both things, right? I think which is strange because when Bubba Ventrone got hired, it was such a coup. It was like they're moving on from Mike Prefer, and it's like, here comes Bubba Ventrone, who's this like Bill Belichick, disciple. Played for Bill Belichick, was really good in Indianapolis as a special teams coach. We were asking him in his intro press conference, like, are you an aspiring head coach? And it felt right to ask him that. So I think it's a combination of, look, I'm going to sound like Kevin Stefanski. He's got to coach better, right? He shares in the blame for this. It is on the special teams coach, and the Browns have to make a decision there at some point. Probably not this, during the season, but after the season, they've got to have a real discussion about this. But also, there are young guys. Like, special teams is where you're working with the bottom of the roster. And on a super young team, that bottom of the roster can get really thin fast, and you're relying on guys who maybe shouldn't be in those positions. But it's also Bubba's job to coach them up. And I know in the locker room afterwards, some guys it didn't seem like they were ready to put this thing on Bubba.
Yeah, it didn't. And, Grant Delpit was a guy that we asked about this again. And he made the comment that special teams is more like you can prepare all you want, but you have to be willing to give the effort in those moments. And that's more so what it's about than coaching, right? And he's a guy that's come to Bubba Ventrone's defense. Like, this is also interesting because, yeah, I mean, Bubba Ventrone was getting, looked at possibly to be the Colts head coach at the time. And then he comes here and gets the assistant head coach title on top of being the special teams coordinator. And it just still has been a struggle. And I do think, like, you look back, this is now struggles across coordinators. And I do think so much of it comes down to the roster building. I mean, the reality is, like, Gage Larbadan was having a great training camp, but he was a player in theory that was like more on track, I think, to be a practice squad guy. And now he's playing like very meaningful snaps, right? And he's had some good plays, like Mary Kay said. Obviously, the return last week is a great play. He's also had some mistakes that you would expect a smaller, undrafted rookie to make. And like, that's the reality when you have a guy who I think should be more like a developmental type of guy playing these super meaningful snaps. And they've had that for years. I mean, I've covered this team 5 years and they've never been able to figure out returner. Like, they've tried so many different ways. They tried DeAndre Carter. Who was it? Oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Who was here before that got hurt twice? Jakeem Grant. Yes, Jakeem Grant, right? Like, we've been through this now in multiple iterations, which to me speaks to roster building failures in the front office. And it's unfortunate. Look, kicker, obviously, right? Like, they are lucky Andre Schmidt has kind of stabilized here, but they really went into this season with no backup plan at kicker and sort of, I would argue, got lucky. And now you need to hope it continues. So it is tough. Like, I do think, like, at some point something has to change, right? But I don't think this is all on Bubba Ventrone by any means. And I do think, yeah, Dan, we just sound like a Kevin press conference now. I think everyone has to be better, right? They have to coach better. They have to play better.
We need to play better. We need to coach better. We all wear this. Yeah. Okay. I want to let you guys go, but there's one other thing I want to talk about. I'm gonna try and do some live production here again, real quick. See if I can pull this off. I'm getting confident because I was able to pull it off last time. So we're going to give this one more shot. So Mary Kay, you put up a story about Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders. So there, you should be able to see on your screen now on YouTube Shorts, an exchange that Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders had on the sideline. So this was captured on CBS Sports. This is CBS Sports YouTube channel. This is a short, and you kind of wrote about this. This stuff happens on an NFL sideline sometimes, right? Like a receiver and a quarterback, you got to sit down on the tablet, you got to go over stuff. This, of course, is a little bit over the top from Jerry Jeudy. But when you watched this for the first time, when you saw this video for the first time, of course, Shedeur didn't talk about it directly after the game, but he talked about that connection with Jerry Jeudy. I guess, what did you think of it? How do the Browns kind of get this fixed? How does Shedeur and Jerry Jeudy get this fixed here over the next 5 weeks to try and make this work? And again, try and help Shedeur make that case that he can be more than just the starter at the end of this season.
Well, those two guys have got to get on the same page. They've got to quickly get it together. They have to patch this up and fix this. And Shedeur was saying today that they need to be consistent, and he needs to be able to trust Jerry Jeudy, is basically what he was saying. And Jerry needs to be where Shedeur needs him to be. And those two guys just have got to communicate every single day, and they have to put whatever differences that they might possibly have aside. And maybe they don't have any at all, but they have got to get together, and they've got to learn to work together really well. Now, the thing about Shedeur Sanders is that he has plenty of chemistry with the Gage Larvadans and the Malachi Corleys and the Caden Davises and the Luke Florias. And he doesn't have much chemistry with the Jerry Judys and the Cedric Tillmans and the David Njokus. Fortunately for him, he's developed sort of an instant chemistry with Harold Fannin, but he doesn't have much with the other primary pass catchers. And that's not helping this offense at all. I mean, if you look at the stats today, you can see that there are issues there. And Jerry's frustrated. Jerry's obviously frustrated by how this is going. So those two guys are going to need to put their heads together, and they're going to have to figure out a way to try to salvage this and fix this. And I think communication is going to be the key. But here's the thing, and Shador even said this today, it's time on task. And I've heard this so many times with a receiver quarterback combination. It's time on task, and you can't get it in practice. You have to get it in the heat of the moment. You have to really, for the most part, you have to get it in a game. So I've written a column saying that I thought the Browns were remiss in not giving Shador Sanders any first team reps after Dylan Gabriel became QB1. I stand by that, and I think it's hurting him to this point.
Well, and look, this is a whole. We're going to talk about this at some point on the pod, but even beyond just when Dylan Gabriel took over as the starting quarterback, I mean, the way Shador has played here in his first two starts, and how some of what we've seen has backed up some of the good that we were seeing in training camp. I think it reflects poorly on the fact that this team didn't even give him any opportunities over the spring or the summer. I mean, there's a lot of time in the summer, and there's a lot of time in the spring to at least give him something with these starters. And they refused to do it. And now here we are, we're in December, and he's your starting quarterback, could be your starting quarterback now for the last 5 games. And granted, that was months ago, but like, to miss that opportunity, to leave that on that looks really bad in hindsight. It was really weird in real time. We could kind of talk through it a little bit and figure out what they were doing. But Ashley, now that he's your starting quarterback, it's kind of like, man, you couldn't have gotten him a few first team reps even in the summer, especially because we were sitting there all summer and we were watching a guy that in the opportunities he was getting was playing well.
Yeah, and think about how many first team opportunities this team gave Kenny Pickett throughout the offseason program and then the beginning of training camp. A guy who was not on the roster, who was traded away before training camp was over. And like, the Kenny Pickett of it all is still probably the weirdest part of it to me, because if they really believed Kenny Pickett was this like reclamation project, like to the extent that it seemed like they did, why would you trade that guy away for a measly 5th round pick that you very rarely don't do much with? I mean, like, the most notable 5th rounder they've taken has been Shador Sanders so far. So that part of it just didn't make any sense. It doomed the 4 quarterback competition from the start because you had one guy that you traded away. So those automatically were wasted reps for everyone, like not just for Kenny, but for Shador, for these pass catchers. So again, I don't know what this room is going to look like next year, but this team really bungled a 4-way quarterback competition. I don't know if it's possible to not bungle a 4-way quarterback competition. I don't see how it can be very productive, to Mary Kay's larger time on task point. I don't see how one guy could get enough time on task in a open competition among 4 people. But they really just, I think, did the worst possible job managing all of this, going back to the spring when this all really started.
Okay. I'll let you guys go. Again, we'll have lots of time to talk about this. Mary Kay will be jumping on a Hey MK pod on Monday. So our Football Insider subscribers always send us questions for that. If you want to get involved in that, it's cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. We're going to continue on our post-game show. This is always the fun part, me trying to actually figure out this transition. So I'm going to say goodbye to Mary Kay now. I'm going to say goodbye to Ashley. And there we go. And now I'm going to text Lance. See, I should have texted Lance earlier and been like, hey, man, we're ready. But I'm doing that right now. Ready for you. So there we go. Lance will jump on here in a second as our post-game podcast continues here on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. If you're wondering, like, if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, Orange and Brown Talk podcast, I don't ever listen to that. What is that exactly? Like, what is this show? So it's 5 days a week Apple Podcast and Spotify. During the season, we do a post game pod. We do a Hey MK pod on Mondays. So those that's like a user Q&A. Usually it's Mary Kay and I. This past week it was Ashley and Mary Kay because I was traveling. Ashley did a great job filling in there. Then we usually do a Tuesday, Wednesday pod where Lance jumps on to set up the week. We did a little coach cliche draft this past week. So we do that. And then we do a big preview pod leading into the week. That gets you through your Friday, Saturday. So again, that's 5 days a week. We're on Spotify, Orange and Brown Talk podcast. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Orange and Brown Talk podcast, on our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Try to put a lot of our pods up there, not all of them, but most of them. And then, of course, we haven't been going live the last few weeks just because of our travel and things like that. A couple of weeks ago, we got kicked out of the press box in New York at 8:00. So we weren't able to go live there. And then we weren't, I forgot to tell Lance to go. I forgot to tell Lance to go into the wrong, I told Lance to go to the wrong place. So there we go. I'm texting him now. He'll be jumping on here in a second. Okay. So, we tried to go live last week in Las Vegas. It was impossible with travel. Mary Kay and Ashley had to go catch a red eye. So we just had to record the pod and go. But we're going to be trying to go live here as we get into more normal. They have a bunch of home games. They have a bunch of, they play in Chicago in a few weeks. So we should be able to go live a little bit. I saw someone saying they finally made it to a live here in the YouTube chat. So it's good to some of the folks that haven't been able to make it. It's good they've been able to make it. So there you see him. There's our guy, Lance Reisland. Here's the test. Lance, can you hear me?
I got you. You got me?
Oh, I can hear you too. All right. I'm on a roll. Lance, I'm doing like production stuff here.
Got a lot going on, huh?
On the screen. I'm sharing stuff with people, man. This is high-tech stuff here going on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So first time we've had you on a post game in a little while. I was just telling everybody we haven't been able to go live the last few weeks. So first time we've had you on in a little while. It's good.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah, good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start with it. Shedeur Sanders. Mary Kay, Ashley, and I talked about him. He's going to be the starter again next week against Tennessee. Overall, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to rewatch the game yet or not. I'm guessing you have already.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what did you think of how Shedeur played today?
I thought the first half he was very efficient. I thought they did some really nice things on offense. I thought they had the run game going. One of the things I thought about the run game is, as an offense coordinator, everybody's kind of complaining about not letting him go. And what ends up happening is you have a game where you're running the ball and you have some success, so you try to stick with it, and it's hard to pick and choose your shots when you want to take them. I thought the miss to Judy, it was a really bad miss. And the reason I say that is because just like the pass last week to Isaiah Bond was a great hit, those are momentum changes. Those are impactful plays. And when you have weather like you had, I don't think it's about numbers. I think it's about impactful plays. I did not think Shedeur was as impactful today as he was in the first start. That being said, I also don't panic. As you know, same thing with Dylan is I'm glad they're giving him another chance to kind of go through the ups and downs. I will say this, that last quarter and a half, you saw some real bad habits again with those feet. He leaving the pocket when he didn't need to. So again, you hope he watches those on film and you hope he corrects those things. It's hard to when you're not getting in good rhythm. But once again, I thought he was solid, not very impactful today for how he's played. But as I said with Dylan, and though I'm not comparing him, weather, wind, teammates, play calling, offensive line play, drops, all the things you and I have talked about for the last 2 years, those are things that are real for a quarterback, and whoever's at quarterback is experiencing that right now with the Browns.
How much of that late in the game was sort of because San Francisco had started to take control? And so, like I mentioned this in the first part of the pod, they had that drive that ended with the beautiful ball to Fannin. That drive it started with 9 straight runs. So, there was an end around in there, right? They weren't all just straight runs, but it was 9 straight run plays. How much of that? So that kind of puts Shedeur in a position where it's like, we're not asking you to do too much. We're asking you to just run the offense and make the throws when we need you to. Now San Francisco's got a lead. They're starting to pull away. The field position is bad. Our special teams is killing us. And now we're putting a little more on your plate because we need you to make some plays. How much of it do you think was that?
I think it's a combination, but I think that's something also as a quarterback who wants to be who Shedeur Sanders is going to be. I think he has to improve on that. Now, I agree with the idea that that throw he made to Fanta was very good. Now, what ends up happening is that it was cover 3 because they had to move extra guys down the box because the Browns were having great success running the football. So when you have success running the football, it's a game of numbers. You got to move guys down the box to stop the run. That leaves less guys to cover. Really nice job on the post wheel. I sent you guys a text. It was a really nice route, really nice design of the play. The corner and the safety stayed with the post. Fanta did a nice job selling the out and then going up. And two things that I thought were really good on that play is he choked it down a little bit, not to give that safety a chance to kind of rebound and get back over. Great throw. But again, I do not think, when he had to throw the ball, I think he'll tell you he had some misses. He also has some footwork issues. And when he has his footwork issues, I think he'll tell you, you're not on time with things. You're not reading things correctly. You're not getting to your second, third progressions. They were getting pressure. All those things take into account. And once again, it's the idea of it's not all his fault, but he's part of it. He's part of the play calling is part of it. The special teams were horrendous again today. I texted you a couple things that how I felt about those things today. The questionable situational play calling, the fourth down misses. The one with Fannin I wasn't a big fan of. The one by the early fourth down, that was just a great play. The guy kind of let Batonio dive it, try to chop him, didn't make it. That was just a good defensive play. But then the turnover, the special teams, those three huge things on special teams are killing. So yeah, he did his part. When people say he was fine, I don't think he was. But I think he is part of the solution. I think he did some good things. But I also think, when things got heated, he struggled. He wasn't the only one that struggled. This is a team game. And, the idea of I try to call it like I see it on the film. He did some excellent things. That first half, he was in control, patient, footwork looked good. As he gets older and as he gets more and more reps, he's going to have to continue to work on that footwork because that footwork puts him far behind.
Yeah, and I just put this comment up on the screen. He's not perfect, but he does some things that the team needs. Again, this is especially right now. Look, this team is at 9 losses, right? So we all know what it is right now at this point. And you're still trying to win football games. So, Lance, I'm not going to sit here and convince you that they shouldn't try to win football games. That would be a losing battle anyway, even if I wanted to. But you're still trying to win football games. But I think the reality is, and I think we saw it a little bit today with their decision to rotate Tevin Jenkins and Wyatt Teller every other series. I thought that was a very clear indication that there's some areas where they're going to be taking a look at some guys. So even more so than they have all year. This season now, these last 5 games, this month of December and that one game in January really are going to be about right now Shedeur Sanders. And if he continues to do what he's been doing, I keep calling it survive and advance. If he continues to survive and advance and keep this starting job week to week, it's going to be about seeing exactly where you stand with him, because that's going to help inform. I don't know if there's going to be a world where they come out of this year and they're like, Shador's the guy, we're set. But it'll at least help inform your decision-making process as you get into this offseason, as the 26th draft takes shape. I can't wait to talk to you and Tim about that all offseason. And as they head into free agency, all of that stuff, they look at these veteran guys. I joked that Mac Jones got to come in today and see what it was like to run onto this field for the first time, get a feel for, kind of get used to that, right? So we'll see that the rest of this season, especially for Shedeur, or if they end up going back to Dillon Gabriel, it's going to be about gaining information about these guys.
Well, I think you saw, I think they did it. Today was okay for me in terms of that, because, when you run the ball 9 times in a row, you're trying to score, you're trying to win, and you sprinkle in a pass there, which he made a great throw. I will say this, just like I said with Dillon when he played terribly, his worst start, and they said, Kevin immediately came out and said he was starting the next game. And I said, that's not only great for Dillon, but if you remember, I said, I think that's great for Shedeur. And the reason I mean it's great for Shedeur is that his surrounding parts aren't great. And when your surrounding parts aren't great, you have to play at a really high level. You're not getting run after catch all the time. You're not getting, he played really impactful last week. He made a couple really nice throws, but one of his throws was a swing pass that Dylan Sampson made. Now, I will say this about Shedeur Sanders before I really dive in deep and I start, watching the end zone copy, because I've just watched it once. The thing that was evident today, that it was evident last week, was the impact on his teammates. the energy, the pace, and the what they did was a lot different today. It did not have the same energy. It did not have the same pace, and that's not all his fault. But that was the honeymoon period that I talk about when there's a shiny new toy, and that's at every level of football. And then it kind of gets back to normal. And once again, I thought he protected the ball very well. I thought, playing Robert Salah's defense is very tough because it's a different picture from pre-snap to post-snap. So I thought he protected the ball well. There's a couple that I think he'll look at in film once again because he needs those live reps. He'll say, you know what, next time I'll rip that one. But this is not in defense of Shador or attacking Shore. This is a team issue right now. They are, they're very inconsistent at everything they do. They're not controlling the controllables for me. The special teams, the effort on special teams, the defense is playing at a high level. And I've had a lot of people say, well, they scored. I'm not, as a football coach, this defense is playing championship level defense, and everything that's happening to them is because of the offense and the special teams. They can't be perfect, but they are. I mean, sometimes they are. They had 76 yards, with not much time left in the half. So they're playing at a really high level. They got to get some weapons on offense. They have to figure out what they have at quarterback because, they need weapons. If he's a quarterback, you got to get a tackle, you got to get a receiver. If he's not the guy, then you got to get a quarterback. But then you don't have any, you got to watch this. It's a very tough situation they're in right now. But I think he's part of like the entire team right now. Inconsistent, young, hot, cold. Today, once again, stats don't mean anything to me in a game like today. It was about his impact. And I just didn't feel he had a huge impact today. Not a lot of other people did either. But as the quarterback, that's what you sign up for. You sign up to be impactful. And he just wasn't today. And last week, he was super impactful.
So I want to talk about something you said there, and I want to put this comment. I'm going to put this comment up on the screen because I do want to talk a little bit about the defense, and then we'll get into special teams. From Free to Thrive, defense wasn't high level today. I texted you this during the game. I tweeted this too, and I got some pushback on Twitter about this. I thought Brock Purdy was awesome today, and I know statistically you're not going to look through this game log on Pro Football Reference in 5 years and be like, man, that game that Brock Purdy played in Cleveland, where he was 16 of 29 for 168 yards and a touchdown, and he had a rushing touchdown, and his rating was 83.7. You're not going to look back at that and be like, man, what an amazing game by Brock Purdy. But I thought, given the conditions, and also, this is something that I mentioned on the pregame show, and I think it played out today. This was the first time in a while where the Browns played a team that was built to kind of mitigate some of the things they do well. Ball came out quickly. Ball came out on time. And I thought Brock Purdy was excellent today at just being patient and not letting Myles Garrett had one sack today, and it came late in the game. Not letting Myles Garrett and this defensive line wreck this game. Get rid of the football. Live to see another play. Make the throw when you need to make the throw. All of those things. So statistically, is it some amazing game that we're going to look back on and say, whew, this was one of Brock Purdy's best games ever? No, but just sitting there watching this, I thought he was excellent today. And I think a big part of it was just he was patient. He didn't make the big mistake. He didn't, this is what you'd love Shador Sanders to look like in some of these games too. And he has the potential to get there, I think. I just thought he did exactly what he needed to do today.
Well, yeah, and that all being said, they still had under 300 yards total offense. They had,
right.
I thought before the drive that I thought killed the Browns was when 49ers, that drive at the end of the half where they got the field goal and they went up 10-8. I thought that drive really kind of set the tone for the second half. Up to that point, they were dominant. And all those things you said, for me, those are all terms of intangible, impactful plays. Throwing the ball away when you need to. The Browns still got great pressure, and he was getting it out at 2.5 or under almost every single time. So that was, I think he was just impactful. And if you look at the offense, you can say, CMC and Junkins were a wash. They both had some good runs. They both were solid. They did some good things in the pass game. They didn't have really great receiver play. Neither did the Browns. You could say Kittle probably was really impactful, the tight end. So it came down to the quarterbacks. And once again, it's not about playing great, especially in weather like that. It's making winning plays. And sometimes a winning play is throwing the ball away. Sometimes a winning play is not taking a sack. Sometimes a winning play is taking a sack and not fumbling. It's really, the quarterback position, I've said it for 4 years with you. It gets too much credit, too much blame. And right now, the idea that people are so, either way on Shador sometimes it clouds your thought on the offense as a whole. And when you watch Brock Purdy, that's a good way to look at it. He wasn't great today, but that's kind of what I think Shedeur Sanders can be. I'm not sure if he's ever a guy who has a rifle arm and is going to do all those things and run with the ball and things like that, but he can make a lot of winning plays. He's a winning quarterback, and that's kind of what he's got to get to. I still think Shedeur, just like Brock Purdy, you need guys around him. He's not a guy who's going to carry the offense, and the Browns just don't have the weapons right now around him, and the weapons they do have aren't always performing at a super high level.
All right, so let's talk about these special teams, because you just had you had the muff punt, you had the big return, you have the Malachi Corley play, which again I talked about it. Like all you have to do is let that ball go out of bounds, or like just take one step, put your foot out of bounds before you catch it, and people are talking about how brilliant you are because you got that ball out to the 40-yard line, right? We've seen that loophole get taken advantage of over and over again. This team is just there's not enough margin for error, especially starting a rookie quarterback. I know somebody's saying Purdy threw 3 interceptions in the first half last week. I'm not talking about last week. I'm talking about what I saw today. This was the eyeball test today, folks. This was me watching this game and thinking Brock Purdy handled one of the best defenses in football and stayed out of trouble really well. Anyway,
Got it.
I don't want to argue with commenters. I love you guys. I don't want to spend the whole pod arguing with you, because I think we can all agree that the special teams is awful today. That's one thing we can all agree on. Lance, I don't know. I don't know. On the one hand, I don't know how much blame Bubba Ventrone gets because Gage Larvidan muffed a punt. But also, this is another long return that we've seen, going back to the Jets game now. And then there was another one in the Lions game. We keep seeing these long returns. We keep seeing these mistakes. I referenced it in the first part of the pod. There was the blocked punt in Baltimore. There was the running into the kicker in Pittsburgh. It's just these mistakes over and over and over again that are killing a team that just does not have any room for error.
Well, I'll say this, the Larvidan, like a missed kick or something like, some things that are kind of out of his control. Unfortunately, you're in charge. And when you're in charge, that's the way it works. It doesn't matter if that's your team and that's your special teams. And if the guy misses a kick, you're the guy on the top of the hill. And my dad has always taught me that you take ownership for it. And I think they've done a pretty good job in the last couple of weeks taking ownership. In fact, I think they've played pretty good special teams for a couple of weeks now. And I've said that, with you and, when we talk on Tuesdays. However, Corley, I got some clap back too about the Corley, because I said it was just such a mental error. And he was toe tapping like a receiver. He was catching the ball and he toe tapped like to stay in bounds. That's just a lack of mental. That's a lack of pre-snap. What do you have to do? The visualization as a kicker. And then their cover teams, that's on Bubba Ventrone, because again, that's lane integrity and effort. And you have to find guys, then every starter's got to be on there. And people are like, well, they can't do that. Well, that affects the defense, because I constantly hear people talk about the defense isn't playing well. They're not doing their part. Well, if you start where they start, the momentum, those special teams affect how Shedeur Sanders plays. It doesn't sound like, but this is a complementary football game. And when you're special teams, the special teams aren't a wash for the Browns. And at the NFL level, if they're a wash, the Browns always win defense and they always win offense. And if the Browns had a wash on special teams today, that game's, it's not automatically a win, but it's coming down to the end of the game again with a score either way, because they're going to win. Like I said, they're going to win on defense most of the time, and they're going to lose on offense most of the time right now. So that special teams has to be a wash for you to, compare the offense and defense. And right now it just kills them. There's mental errors by the players. Yes, they have to take ownership, but I'm also a big believer in you're the head coach of that phase, and everything that goes wrong with that. That's why you get that money. That's why you're in charge, and it stinks. But being a head coach, I would say that all the time. My defensive coordinator I had nothing to do. He was awesome when I was coaching. And when things went wrong, I took the whole blame. Why? Because that's what you do when you're in charge. And right now, they're just not playing at a high level, and something needs to be done with personnel, coaching, whatever it is. But you got to make a change there, because it's not working.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not smart enough to sit here and say what the solutions are. Obviously, look, losing DeAndre Carter hurt, but that's football too. There's so many times where we sit here and talk about injuries, but that is football. You're going to lose key players. And sometimes it can get to a point where it's so overwhelming, you just can't fix it. But losing one guy, losing a return guy, you should be able to fix that, and you should be able to figure that phase out. And Gage is a great story, and he had a great return last week against the Raiders. He set up a score for this football team, but you can't have plays like that. And to everyone's point, to a lot of people's point in the comments, part of the reason Brock Purdy was so good today is he had field position. And then for Shedeur Sanders, you're asking him to start to drive at his own 5-yard line. Like, what do you expect is going to happen in that situation? That drive could have gone a lot worse had that flag ended up in the end zone and it had been a safety or something. So, or, we saw Dylan Gabriel have that intentional grounding in New England a few weeks ago out of the end zone to turn into a safety. Shedeur was really close to that on that last play, that third down play. So you're not helping your rookie quarterback, and you're not helping an offense that just doesn't have the capabilities to be a high-powered offense with these poor special teams plays.
Well, yeah, and if you look at it, like they put some more starters on the kickoff team. I've always been a believer, punt team and kickoff team. Those are the two special teams that cost you games. The other special teams cost you field position, tempo, rhythm, and pace. And that's what you had today. They just lost tempo, rhythm, and pace. The defense, I thought did a great job with sudden change. You make a big stop, you come right back on the field when you fumble a punt. That affects the defense. You expect the defense to be great. They get a big stop, and then they come off before they can take their helmets off. They got to go back on the field. That's a mental thing. That affects the offense. That affects everybody involved. When they say it's a complementary football, it's just not on the field. It's the feeling. It's the pace. It's the rhythm. It's what everybody felt last week against the Raiders when he had that big return, or the defense gets a big play, or when Shedeur rolls out and hits Bond. Look what that did for the defense. Look what that did for field position. And once again, if you miss a tackle, if you muff a punt, those things are those are on players and coaches. It all starts up top. However, when you don't have good lane integrity and you're not doing your job, as a coach, you look in the mirror and say, I got to get guys out there that can do the job. Bubba Ventrone is not a bad special teams coach. Kevin Stefanski didn't get dumb overnight. They're making some questionable calls at times, but they're also not executing at times. And that's personnel as much as it is anything else.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, look, we were talking about this earlier. This team is 2 games going one way or another, going a different direction for being right there. I mean, for all the warts on this team, for all the flaws on this football team, they're in a division where the teams tied at the top are 6-6, and they're 3-9. And if 2 games, the Jets game, lost that one on special teams, right? This game today, I don't know that you lost this solely on special teams, but it sure didn't help you. It gets a big piece of that blame pie. If you're 5-7, maybe you're not a good team, but you're right in this division race. You're still playing for something next week with the freaking Titans coming to town. I think that's what's so frustrating about this season, and why Browns fans should be frustrated, and why Bubba Ventrone and Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and all of these guys should be, none of them should be comfortable right now, because no matter what you thought of this season coming in, and I didn't think this was going to be a very good football team, but like a couple things go differently, and all of a sudden you're right there in it, in what's been a pretty bad division. And you're going to leave. This defense has been incredible, and you're going to leave that sitting on the table when all is said and done.
Yeah, you know what, and that's the really hard thing. And I will say this, even the people have said things to, have been upset with some of my comments and have told me about it on social media. I tell you what, I actually like that. And people say, what do you mean by that? These Browns fans, they care. They have investment, right? The Browns Sunday, they listen to you guys all the time. There's investment to this team. There's investment to the new, they're building a new dome stadium, the Muni lot, Browns coming back in 19. There's investment. People expect to win. When it's okay to lose, I wouldn't want to be a part of a team like that. I wouldn't want to cover a team like that. People expect much more than they're getting right now, and it's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to be mad. And as a coach, I never looked at that as like, oh, you don't understand. I looked at it as like, I'm going to figure it out. And I know they're 3-9 right now, but you're hoping those coaches can't wait to get up, because I had some losing seasons, and I had as much pride getting up when I wasn't winning as I did when I was winning. And that's what kind of turns the corner. You got to have pride and get up tomorrow morning and it's 3-9. It's a lost season. Well, be 4-9 next week. and then next week be 5-9. And that's how you got to look at it. And that's the only way you can turn the page. But the frustration level and the anger that people have right now, good. That's rightfully so. And hopefully the Browns, move forward with that idea that they got to fix it.
Well, I have good news, and I say this carefully because the Browns are a 3-9 football team. So I always, I try to talk about this team like the team I'm seeing, like they are 3-9. But next week might be interesting with the Tennessee Titans coming to town. Myles Garrett is up to 19 now. He could get that record next week against Cam Ward. It's in play. He could end up with that many sacks. So again, the Browns can't approach it like this. And I've seen, I watched this team lose to the Jets a few weeks ago. So, and as you always say, Lance, every week is different. You put it behind you. But, this team is a 3-9 football team. So you don't want to get too cocky with it. But there is an opportunity next week to at least let your fans feel really good. At least let your fans watch a really fun football game. If you can clean up some of those special teams and not make mistakes that are going to let the Titans, who are just an absolute mess, and have a rookie quarterback who, again, Myles Garrett might get all the sacks he needs to break that record next week. A guy that admittedly I really liked coming out in the draft. I'm not giving up on him yet, but you got an opportunity to make some people feel good about this football team next week for whatever it's worth.
Well, and for me, it's worth a lot, right? Because it tells you when you, and I've always been a believer, it doesn't go week to week, but you have to figure out how to turn this into, when you go back to work tomorrow, you have to figure out how to turn it into a building block and not a negative, I told you so, and not this guy's not doing it. This guy's not getting protection, or this guy's not catching the ball. You have to somehow pull these guys together. It's like I said about Jerry Jeudy. His body language right now to me is awful. And I don't like watching it because I know he's frustrated, but you got to get Jerry Jeudy on board. And however you have to do that, that's your job as a coach. And you would like every player to be on board and be a team guy. That's not how the world works. That's definitely not how NFL football works. And, I know high school football doesn't work like that. So I think it's important. Oh, nice little change of pace there. I like that. I lost you. I hope you can hear me. But anyway, I think it's important that they get up tomorrow and they figure out, because you're right, this is a winnable football game, and they better figure out how to win it.
I was muted, but I was saying, watch this. I was putting the standings up there on the screen.
I like it. I'm in a little circle on the bottom.
See, this is.
I like it. You're getting it, man. You're getting it. I like it.
Look at this. Look at this, Lance.
Well, I'm with you a bunch every week. So I like all these things you're getting for us moving forward.
It was right there, and it still might be right there for a team like the Cincinnati Bengals. But man, I think there's going to be a lot of regrets about this season when all is said and done, and they see what they had with this defense. And it's games like this where, again, just your special teams let you down, and it wasn't good enough. And yeah, we'll be talking about it a lot. Anything else before I let you go here? We're hitting about an hour here on this post-game show. So anything else you want to hit before we go?
Everybody should have, just everybody has the right to be frustrated and upset. And, without frustration, without expectations, you have apathy. And, the Browns have to get over this. Woe is me. No one cares. Figure it out and get it done. And that's from my pops. And I believe that. I've been involved in football for a long, long time. And it's easy to coach when you're winning. They have to figure it out and move forward and get this. These guys aren't dumb. Bubba Ventrone was the best special teams guy when they hired him. Kevin's been 2-time coach of the year. These guys didn't get dumb. Right now, they're not in the right place, and they got to figure out how to get back to it.
Okay, we're going to wrap up our post game there. As I mentioned while we were waiting for Lance to jump on, if you're watching here on our YouTube channel and you aren't subscribed to Orange and Brown Talk on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, we'd love it if you could get over there, get subscribed, become one of our regular listeners. Got a great community of listeners there. Again, that's just Orange and Brown Talk, wherever you listen to your pods. If you happen to listen to this post game and you're like, wait, you guys were live, you're on YouTube, where do I go to find that? Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. That's the YouTube channel. There's a little, I think it's a podcasts tab. If you click on that, it'll take you to all the videos, the Orange and Brown Talk videos that we put up. And of course, that's where you can find our live shows as well. Football Insiders, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. And two more things to plug: our Twitter, our Instagram. Our Instagram's Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter's Orange Brown Talk. Lance Reisland is on the show, most post-game shows. He jumps on every Tuesday. He jumps on every Thursday breaking down the film. So you'll get to hear him on the podcast. And of course, you hear from me and Mary Kay every day. You hear from Ashley most days. You heard from them earlier on this pod. So for everybody involved, for all of you out there listening, I appreciate you. Thanks for listening, everybody.